Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we've got another episode of ProRevenge, and before we start please make sure you click like, subscribe and the bell icon for more videos, and also comment down below, anything you want. Anyway, without further ado, let's get straight into the first story. Bridezilla Karen ends up looking like a pauper at her own wedding. I, female 48, have known Pat, female 48, for decades. As far as I can remember, she was fixated on having 5 children and a picket fence dream life. I slowly cut ties with her in college because she was an opportunist and I didn't trust her. She is both manipulative and forceful. Her idea of cute rubs me the wrong way. Pat likes to walk like a penguin when she wants to elicit pity, and she usually does this when she wants to evoke the underdog narrative. I've never seen someone act so despicable and ridiculous at the same time. I moved on with my life. Happy got rid of her for years. Pat eventually found me on Facebook. I accepted her friend request out of politeness. So, start of the story. I think that, what do I think? She hadn't seen this friend for ages, and this person was kind of a opportunist and things like that. Then maybe this Karen, Pat, maybe she's probably gonna try and contact her and pester her, something like that. I don't know, that's just my initial thoughts. Pat has become the epitome of a permissive mother. Her 5 kids do so as they please, and she never calls them out. She tried to force a relationship between me and her daughters and made them call me auntie. Pat tried to drop them at my house uninvited. Her phone calls were insistent. She tried to monopolize my time, and she began to show up at my job. I created some boundaries, and so she tried to find loopholes. It was a nightmare. Okay, again, this is not a very nice person, is it? Does not really respect people's space. Imagine actually doing that. Imagine dumping your kids at someone's house to try and get free childcare. My husband and I hosted a party for the community centre, not the real name, new members. The community centre is actually a very informal initiative, and my husband and I mainly serve the homeless population. We prefer to help strangers instead of catering to potentially narcissistic acquaintances. We don't mind lending a hand, but we have encountered truly dishonest choosing beggars. There are other services, like one of the members who helps women get their wedding and prom dresses for free. The community centre location headquarters is actually a farm owned by an elderly couple. There's a barn, a venue, and a very nice garden green field filled with artificial lake and some fowl. They charge for the use of the facilities, weddings, etc., but not for community-orientated stuff. Pat had always been... Wait, is she going to try and use this venue for her wedding for free? I think that's where this is going. Pat had always been salty at her husband for demanding that she go back to work after baby number 3. In the meantime, he worked 3 jobs. She demanded he get her pregnant to fulfill her dream of having 5 kids. He didn't agree, because he was already nearly 45 and felt like he might never be able to retire. She got away with bringing new babies into his world anyway. Her fascination with being pregnant comes from all the attention she gets. She had at least 1 miscarriage in between each kid. Being pregnant for attention, it's a whole human who's got to live a long life, so yeah, that could have pretty horrible effects of that poor child who's been born just for attention. Just for their mum, to get attention and things. Pat latched onto our group. She never missed any of her activities. I hated having her in my house, but it was an open invitation that included virtually everyone, and she was very active as an event organizer. I didn't like the way her kids behaved. We have a designated area for parties and entertainment, but her kids ended up inside my bedroom. We ended up having to keep watch of them and enjoyed 0 of our own party. Yeah, that's, typical not responsible adult. I mean, that'd be so annoying, you're letting people use your house, a nice community event, and then people just end up going in your private space, where you have all your stuff and photos and things like that. I called her days later to get my point across regarding their overall behaviour, but she completely cut me off and began talking about herself and said her kids wanted to come visit again and use our pool. I never answered that. I didn't want to say, no, I will not have your brats over. She also called me as summer was approaching specifically to let me know her middle daughter was bored and wanted to spend a week at our home. I politely declined, citing that me and my husband have work to do and could not entertain guests. Pat paid no heed. Her kid called me on the weekend, calling me auntie, and attempted to coax me by saying, "Mum says you invited me to spend summer with you." I quickly clarified and offered an explanation to avoid hurting a kid's self-esteem. Never mind, her daughter just hung up on me. Yeah, and now the mum's getting her kids to phone up too. It's not the best person in the world. Pat's Facebook also showed some red flags. Some cryptic rants here, and they were visible, along with friends' comments and complaints on how she asked a particular person to watch her kids only for a couple of hours and ended up leaving them all day. Another of her friends criticised her girls' nights out because Pat had just asked them to be patient and wait until she could pay back some money that she owed them, yet she had money to spend on Friday night outings. I thought those very public comments on private matters were more like a cry of lost patience. I wonder where the revenge is gonna come in though here. I'm not too sure yet. I can't really think of how it's gonna happen. But the title said, it ends up being like a pauper, just like a poor person. So maybe she's gonna try and get the wedding venue for free, and then it's gonna be exposed that she's just doing it for free and she didn't need it for free. I don't know. Unpleasant things began to happen, like the time she volunteered to wrap the Christmas presents for underprivileged kids. We all wanted to create a mix of less costly gifts with really nice ones. Surprisingly, some nice and eye-catching toys and games went missing, but turned up under her Christmas tree, courtesy of her mother-in-law's FB posts. No one could prove anything, but it was hate-inducing. Or the time my daughter called me in tears to pick her up after she attended Pat's daughter's birthday, Casey. My daughter had been ignored all night because she didn't gift her expensive gaming stuff Casey practically demanded. My daughter did ask, but I said no. We would buy her a very nice and thoughtful present according to her taste. So when I went and picked her up, my daughter was sitting alone in the living room while Casey and her friends stayed outside. Well, okay, so her children are horrible too. I think that shows that, if you bring your children up, if you're a nice person, then your children are likely to be nice. If you're a horrible person, then they'll probably be horrible. Stories about Pat and her family multiplied. The owners at the farm community centre decided to keep their gates locked unless they had guests or events because Pat got into the habit of driving in whenever she pleased. It was either her kids screaming and disturbing ongoing weddings, throwing rocks at the koi in the lake, or harassing the geese in the yard. Or how she stuffed another soccer mum with a lunch bill and then pulled the struggling financially card. Or how other parents hated her because she created unnecessary hostile competition. I'm sorry, but this person is literally a mega Karen. Like the stuff that's just been listed here, she's like top tier Karen. When my daughter turned 13, I allowed her to wear my grandma's ring. It's not an expensive piece of jewellery, but it's vintage and girls nowadays want to look boho. My granny gave it to me when I became a teenager, so I passed it on to my kids so she could wear it on her birth week. It was weird that she became quiet and distracted after that. She also didn't want to go to school, and my husband and I became suspicious. She never opened up, and my other kids had no clue. When we went to her school, but her teachers assured her nothing had changed in her environment. My husband and I suspected she was being bullied, but our kid gave no tools to support her. My kid is very sunny and compassionate. She has never had any problems with other kids. I called her best friend's mum, Natalie. My kid's BFF told us what was going on. Casey, Pat's eldest, and my daughter had become close. I knew this and wasn't too thrilled. I found the age, Casey was 17, gap not exactly appropriate, but I'd rather see my daughter spend time with friends in the same age range. Casey is very beautiful and a gifted student. She is also very conceited, which means vain if you don't know. To make the story short, she asked my daughter if she could try on the ring and refused to give it back. She later claimed that she lost it but would look for it, so my daughter was distraught. My daughter kept asking her for her ring. As a result, Katie shunned her and spread the word that my kid was trying to steal her ring. Some kids at school took Casey's side, so now Casey just wore my kid's jewelry to school like nothing happened. If that doesn't qualify as taunting, I don't know what does. Wow, again, horrible mum, horrible children. My guilt comes from not being able for my daughter to open up and feel safe telling me the truth. I talked to her and she burst into tears. I both pained as a mother and furious that some teenage bitch was doing this under our noses. I went straight to Pat's car after school. I asked to talk as Casey was about to go in. So I grabbed Casey's hand and asked to see her jewellery. Casey froze and she tried to make a fist, so I became relentless. Casey yelled "Mum," and Pat struggled to get out of the car. I slid the ring off. Casey has tiny hands and wore the ring on her index finger. First Pat yelled at me. After I confronted her with the engraving on my band, my grandma's maiden name, she argued that it was loaned to her daughter by my kid. Then she said she bought it. I paid her no heed. I did warn them that I knew Casey had become an abusive friend to my daughter. Pat called to tell me off. She said she was trying to raise an assertive young woman and I just messed her up by being overbearing. She never apologised for the thief of a child. Pat's husband, Hank, is what can be described as a doormat. Pat wore him down to a knob. He had no choice but to obey her to keep the peace. She was a bully who actively withdrew affection when she didn't follow her wishes, even in public. So she got kids number 4 and 5 after a relentless campaign that included leaving him for 2 months. Gosh, this person. Her pregnancies were a nuisance because she expected to be treated like the only lady who'd ever been pregnant. She strolled around in a wheelchair almost immediately after getting pregnant, and she would get very sick on weekends, so her kids were often sent to friends and family so she could rest. Pat systematically bullied Hank. She would leave town and take the kids with her. Poor Hank would look distraught, drinking on his porch and just looking really lonely. This is how she got off the hook and was able to leave her job. Hank had virtually no voice, so he struggled to keep the marriage together. Everyone liked him, but hated her equally. Hank loved to talk to other people, but seemed concerned that Pat would be upset. Over time, according to my husband, Hank began to show signs of depression and mental illness. Oh wow, okay, so this Karen is now basically keeping her husband prisoner and causing ill mental health for him. Gosh, this person. Our friend Lena runs a wedding prom dress initiative. It's not complicated. Dresses are sourced from donations, eBay, trunk shows, etc. Unusually beautiful dresses are retained so more than one bride gets to wear them. In some cases, a bride will pay $50, but most of the time the dresses are donated to the bride. Pat was involved in this. Lena kept her in because they never had any issues and her task was limited to just shipping the dresses out. Pat decided to renew her vows and her bridezilla, Karenzilla attitude became the icing on the cake. For starters, she bullied another couple into giving up their wedding date at the farm because she needed her renewal to match her exact wedding date. They were not impressed with her harassment, so they booked another venue. As a result, the farm owners were pissed because Pat was already costing them money after she successfully negotiated cutting their rate because she couldn't afford it but will repay by doing maintenance work around the venue. She never made good on her word. Pat became attached to a particular dress that was already assigned to another bride. Lena made it clear that she would need to pay for her own dress, so Pat played it cool and shipped the wrong ground instead. She was adamant that it was the right dress, so despite all the notes left on Leah's agenda, the other bride was truly gracious about it. She was obviously disappointed, but never made a scene. So now Pat is, if I read that right, Pat is now taking dresses from people who couldn't afford them and were being donated to them and taking them for herself. I don't get these people. I just really don't. There's quite, well, actually on the internet, there are loads of Karen stories. It's surprising how many people are like this. What bothered me most is that I picked the dress and bought it for $40 at a garage sale. Not my money, Leah's money. It was a vintage dress, ankle length, white with lots of lace and a huge bargain. Again, when confirmed, Pat did a Casey and used this is mine strategy. We felt so bad for the other bride that we did our best to get her something nice to wear. The other bride was a true fighter. She had pulled out welfare, earned a high school diploma, and was working to get on her feet by trying to earn a certificate as an acrylic nail technician. So her reward was to have some Karen steal her dress. Pat never admitted to messing up, but just by the fact she claimed it was her dress, we knew. Lena never allowed her wear in her warehouse again. The last phone fight ended with Pat bringing up the other bride's past, like it mattered, and "This conversation is over. It's my dress and you're mistaken." This was all weeks before the other bride's wedding. Pat went out on her wedding decor. She spent way too much. She hired a caterer for some food, mainly mimosas and appetizers, but the wedding invitation included a request for specific dishes and her Sunday brunch wedding. Either she ran out of banquet money or was a complete moocher mode. I pictured the penguin walking up practically asking everyone to supply her wedding reception grub, and I cringe. There's nothing wrong with potluck weddings. In fact, they can be a nice addition to a very cozy and family-orientated wedding reception. But don't you need to be at least close to your guests in order to ask for such a thing? Even I got an invitation. I told everyone I wasn't going because I was very uncomfortable being told what to bring and was probably expected to give them cash on top of that. Some of the older ladies in our group agreed. Some said they would not decline in advance, but she's a bully and they didn't want confrontation. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. If they didn't want that to happen, then they'd just say, oh yeah, we're going, and then wouldn't turn up to avoid her. Which again, is a pretty horrible thing to feel that you can't just decline a wedding for whatever reason. Instead, you've got to lie and say you go, just to escape the evil Karen. The thing is with Karens, they expect everyone to suck it up, or make their dreams come true, or they simply underestimate everyone and think we're all fools. Lena is a very straightforward person with a so sue me attitude. She told me she would just ruin the dress. After all, it was hers, so she could do whatever she wanted. If Pat wanted to take legal action, and should things get ugly, she needed to prove ownership. However, the dress was the same. The marks inside the hem and the tags were the same. Even the tag numbers that were punched to identify each dress for logistic purposes matched. Yeah, I've just realised, so this Karen, she's actually, the whole wedding, second wedding she's having is also just for attention. Pat had the dress obviously altered with some extra beading and dyed to keep a cream colour, but it was obviously the same garment Lena and I snuck in before the venue was closed for the night. All brides allowed to stay in a small bedroom for a small charge so that they didn't need to drive in on their wedding day. Honestly, the makeshift chapel was gorgeous. I don't know how she paid for it, but it was full of flowers and presumptuous details. I naively bought in some ink to spill on the dress, but Lena said she wanted something more awful, like a nasty surprise. Ink would be too obvious, and if she saw it ahead, she may be able to snag another gown from somewhere. No, the ideal thing was to have her trust the dress was fine. So Lena locked herself in the bathroom stall and completely cut out the back panel. She patiently put it back together and zipped the bag. We left through the emergency door with the back of the dress stuffed inside Lena's purse. I completely hate people who target and steal from anyone they, Pat and their kid, calculate to be in a weaker position. The wedding was scheduled at 9 AM. Pat called me at 7 AM, but I ignored her calls. I picked up by 8 AM, both curious and wondering if she suspected anything. Pat was frantic. She was crying that her dress was missing by half. I purposely made her explain, being annoyingly dense and continually interrupting like she does, stalling the conversation. She asked me if I could lend her my wedding dress. I said no, sorry. She then asked me if I would help her get a dress. I was satisfied to remind her that the town's bridal shops are closed on Sunday, and the others would open almost an hour away. The farm is already almost 1 hour away from our town. If Pat could get a shop to rent a dress, she would need to try the dress on and then get it steamed. Even if the dress was ready to wear, it would easily take more than 2 hours round trip. She tried to ask me to go pick a dress. Who would pay for this? Even if the shops were open and she bought a dress, it would add to the cost. Also, these shops open at 10 or 9:30 earliest. By the time they got to her, it would be time to wrap up the wedding because she needed to clear the venue by 12 o'clock for the next event. And I'm sure the next event was, some actual purposeful event for people who needed it. She broke down and mumbled some stupid stuff I didn't understand. So Pat hung up on me and called Lena instead. She asked Lena to bring her anything she had available. Lena and I ended up delivering the most outdated, moss-smelling, oversized dress. Pat's disappointment was a mix between angry and emotional. She also tried to wear it knee-length silk bridal slip as a wedding dress, but it was too obvious and it looked really cheap. She tried to get her daughter to give her her own dress to wear with an open back zipper due to fitting issues, but Casey refused, asking if she was supposed to attend the wedding naked. She got a point, plus Casey is petite. The dress needed a petticoat to plump up the skirt, which wasn't available, so it dragged all over the floor and Pat had to keep pulling it up. Pat walked down the aisle with one hand on her bouquet and another grabbing her dress. The dress looked limp and weird with the arrangement of pins. They didn't show. that caused the sleeves and neckline to pucker into messy rims. She spent the ceremony looking uncomfortable and out of place. Very few people attended, but that was not part of any revenge, that was just how people reacted to her entitled attitude. The dress looked awful. The reception portion of the wedding had all of this princely decoration, a very nice cake, and a bridezilla with a dress from hell. I didn't stay, but I was told she was so disappointed that she spent her wedding sulking. There was no dance, no actual speech. She had to change into a shirt and leggings because the dress was too uncomfortable. Everyone talked about how Pat put on her flip-flops and walked around aimlessly until she ordered the ushers to start folding up the chairs within 1 hour of the reception. So she practically kicked everyone out and the cake was never cut. Pat wasn't the same after this. She was not as loud and avoided everyone. I think she was disappointed that nobody ran to her rescue, not even family who came out of town. Her husband finally cracked under all the pressure and sought in some help. He was slaving away and coming home to clean the house while Pat used her kids as an excuse to spend like crazy. Hank also had to do kid homework because Pat never had time or never had patience. She also refused to get a part-time job so her kids could attend her after school and get help with their school stuff. Therapy seemed to help Hank because the last time Pat left with her kids, he didn't seem distraught. He would be riding his bicycle and could seem more relaxed while mowing his lawn. Hank told my husband that he contemplated suicide after their third kid. When Pat returned, he maintained the routine, but was interested in going out by himself and doing things for himself. We began to see Pat alone all the time. Hank was seen less and less in the same car and eventually moved in with his parents. He filed for divorce on the grounds of emotional cruelty, and I don't think he won. He didn't, oh my god. Instead, I'm not sure what this is because it was what I was told. There was some sort of settlement or agreement that she would not get closer on track with him unless it was to do with the kids. Wow, that was that's, ridiculously horrible that this Karen was being so horrible to him that he contemplated suicide only after the third child. He must have been feeling really awful those past few years. I also don't know if Pat actually suspected what happened to her dress. She slowly pulled away from the community centre and became less active in social gatherings. Pat also removed me from her Facebook as well as mostly everyone from the school and centre. I mean, that revenge actually turned out to be pretty useful good then because, well, if, Pat started, maybe she learnt her lesson, if she started to go away from the community centre, hopefully, maybe. Edit, TLDR. Bridezilla stole a wedding dress from an underprivileged woman. The actual dress owner destroys her big day. Edit, regarding my kid, there were no prior incidents. Pat, her family and my family were not friends. I did see her often. After Casey's birthday incident, there were no additional situations until what happened with the ring. After that, Casey played the OP treated me badly card because I physically removed the ring from her hands because I honestly don't feel I need to protect her emotions. Edit. Thanks to everyone who took their time to read. Thanks for the nice and kind comment and even the naysayers or aggressive ones. I understand we are all different and some situations can seem enraging or so difficult we instantly want to fix it by reacting or reproaching. It's human nature to instantly go for, this is what should have happened instead. I appreciate your input, even the mocking, raging and scrutinizing ones that show me indignation, and this is good. Indignation is good. No one has said, yeah, I love what Pat did, and that shows that we're still striving for a more fair and balanced life. Even the snide comments show me this has gotten under your skin, and I try not to judge. The lovely and supportive Redditors who have shown kindness are also very appreciated. For the most accurate description, these links can help get you an idea, not the actual dresses, but extremely close. What she thought she would wear down the aisle, shorter sleeves, no chain, only ankle length. What she got, oversized, outdated, actually the dress was even bigger. So that's the end of that video. So what do I think? I think that revenge was truly deserved. I mean, this woman was absolutely horrible. She was not nice to her husband, she didn't bring up her kids well, she took advantage of the local community. So yeah, I think she deserved everything she got, and while it seemed to have worked, she started to move away from the community centre. So yeah, overall I think that was a pretty good story. So thank you everyone for watching. Please make sure you subscribe, click the bell icon, click the like button, comment down below and watch all of my other videos because the last few videos didn't actually do that well, so please go and check them out, it will really help me out. Also check out the merch link in the description, still not one person has bought anything. And also follow the I Read 'em Instagram where you can see amazing memes and find out more about this channel and what videos we upload. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching and bye.